Have you ever thought about growing your own food, but then you hear it's going to take, months just to get a single tomato and you just give up? Well, what if I told you you could have a fresh, homegrown harvest in about a week? Today, we're diving into what is seriously the fastest food system you can run right from your kitchen counter, microgreens. But let's be real. For a lot of us, that dream of indoor gardening ends up looking like a pot of sad, wilted basil on the windowsill. We've all been there, right? You follow all the instructions, you water it like you're supposed to, and still, it just doesn't work out. So why is it so tough? Well, here's the thing. The problem isn't that you lack a green thumb. The real issue is that we're often using the wrong playbook. Most gardening advice out there is written for the outdoors, which is a totally different world from the inside of your home. So right from the start, we're working with a flawed framework. Trying to grow a plant that's meant for a giant field inside a small apartment, it's kind of like trying to park a tractor in your living room. It's just not gonna work. To actually succeed, we have to stop trying to force outdoor plants to survive inside and instead pick a system that's built for indoor life from the get-go. I mean, just think about the usual suspects for indoor failures. Tomatoes and peppers, they need tons of deep soil for these massive root systems, and they need pollination to even give you any fruit. Those two things alone are incredibly hard to manage indoors. And herbs, they just seem to give up after a few weeks with the limited light and stagnant air. These aren't just little challenges, they're fundamental mismatches between the plant and your home. This is where we need to have a little conceptual shift. We need to stop thinking about growing a full mature plant and instead focus on a completely different category. And this right here is where microgreens come in, because they are just fundamentally different. Okay, so it is super important to get this clear. Microgreens are not sprouts. This chart really clears things up. Sprouts are grown just in water, usually in the dark, and you eat the whole thing, root, seed, everything. Microgreens, on the other hand, are grown in a medium like soil. They absolutely need light, and you harvest them by cutting the stem above the soil. You're just eating the stem and the plant's first tiny leaves. And that distinction is so critical, both for food safety and for your success. This right here, this is like the biological cheat code that explains their speed. A seed is basically packed with all the energy the plant needs to get started for its first week or so of life. A microgreen is just running on this stored battery power. That's why it doesn't need deep soil or complicated nutrients. It's a totally self-contained launch system, and that one fact changes the entire approach to growing. So success with microgreens really isn't about some innate gardening skill or intuition. It's about adopting a really simple, repeatable system that is perfectly designed for the limits of an indoor space. It's much more about engineering than it is about horticulture. Just look at this side-by-side comparison. It lays it all out. On the left, you've got months of trying to manage this complicated, fragile ecosystem. On the right, you have a simple, controlled process that takes about a week. The microgreen system is designed to just eliminate the variables that usually cause failure. Seriously? Just think about all the gardening chores that are just gone. You don't have to worry about pollinating flowers or moving plants to bigger pots or mixing up fertilizers. The whole life cycle is so short that most long-term problems, like a pest infestation, they never even get a chance to start. And that brings us to the real game changer here, the core advantage that changes everything, especially for a beginner, the incredible speed of the harvest cycle. And this isn't just about being impatient. It's a strategic feature that completely redesigns the experience of growing food. Get a load of this number. It's pretty wild. Research shows that growing broccoli microgreens takes 93 to 95% less time than growing a full head of broccoli out in a field. I mean, let that sink in for a second. We're talking about a harvest in a matter of days, not 100 or 150 days. And here's why that speed matters so much. A shorter timeline is a smaller window for things to go wrong. It's just that simple. There's less time for mold to grow, less time for pests to show up, and frankly, less time for you to forget to water it. Speed is a form of insurance against failure. This also shows you the psychological advantage. The feedback loop is unbelievably fast. You see results in just a couple of days. And hey, what if a tray fails? The stakes are so incredibly low. You haven't wasted an entire season of effort. You've lost, what, a week? You can just toss it in the compost, figure out what went wrong, and start a new tray right away. So all of this really brings us to a total reframing of what it even means to grow food at home. We need to just take that old intimidating belief and swap it out for a new one that's way more accurate. Right, this is the old story we all tell ourselves. The idea that being good at gardening is this innate, almost magical talent. It's this belief that growing your own food has to be a long-term, high-effort hobby where you're probably going to fail a lot. But the reality, it is completely different. Microgreens aren't really a hobby in that traditional sense. They're a food production system. A system that's fast, incredibly simple, and specifically engineered to do great in the exact conditions where all those traditional plants fail. So the real takeaway here is this. Success isn't some identity you have to have. It's a choice you make. It's just about choosing the right tool, the right process for the job you're trying to do. You don't need a green thumb, you just need a shallow tray and a good system. By changing how we see the problem from one of personal skill to one of systems, a clear path to success just opens up. So if you want the practical breakdown of that system, there's a written guide that walks through it clearly.